Hi, I'm Maria Williamson from BT Security Propositions. We're going to run a quick poll to see what industries our audience are from. Let's have a look. Just give you a few moments to answer. Brill. See, we've got quite a diverse audience, which is great. Lots from retail. Oh, public sector are jumping in. Hospitality. Fab. As I said, quite a diverse audience, which is brilliant. Thank you. So good morning. I'm excited to be here with you today for our discussion around how to help small businesses protect themselves against the most common threats, specifically ransomware. We've got two brilliant guest speakers here today who'll be sharing their knowledge and top tips to help keep you and your data secure. Here to share their passions in all things security, please welcome Steve Benton and Rob Daniels.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. It's great to be here.
So shall we kick off? So we know that ransomware is an increasingly critical issue for many of our business customers, but they may not spot it or know what to do about it when it occurs. Rob, can you tell us what ransomware is and how it works?
Yeah, so thank you, Maria. So ransomware is an extremely common and increasingly common form of cyber attack that is affecting many businesses today. Effectively, the way that ransomware works is it is effectively a piece of code or malicious software, often called malware, which enable hackers to be able to access the devices and the data of your organization, encrypt the data in your organization so you no longer have access to it, and effectively hold it to ransom. In other words, cyber criminals will effectively try to extort money from you in order to get in order to restore access to the critical information that you need to run your business. I thought it would just help to give you a sense in terms of how it actually works in practice. Now, of course, there will always be variations to this, but this is a very typical scenario. What will often start, it often starts so innocently with an email that you may even have been expecting that looks very legitimate. And Steve Benton's going to talk more about these types of emails in his section. But effectively, you'll get an email in your inbox. It will look like you need to take some sort of an action, and will often present a link for something like to either confirm payment or to confirm an address or to update your details. But it really is just a trick. Effectively, by clicking on that link, you are starting an action. What will happen is that code that was embedded in that email or embedded in the website that they ask you to visit gets installed on your machine, and it gets to work. It starts encrypting all of your data with a secret key that you don't know, so you can't unencrypt it. Now, once it's gone through that, and you would probably actually even notice it happening, you'll suddenly get a very scary pop-up. And that pop-up, will effectively insist that if you want to have access to your data again, you have to pay up. And usually the way that they try to make you pay is usually by some sort of cryptocurrency. And the amount that you'll be asked to pay will be very variable, will vary. Very often, though, it won't seem like an extremely large amount because they're certainly trying to encourage you to pay up. And they know that if it's something that's completely unaffordable, you're unlikely to take that action. Now, there may be something else that's going on in the background when you've gotten that alert over and above the encryption. And this is something that's relatively new, and which we call the double stinger. It is possible that the cyber criminal is actually also has taken a copy of your data before they encrypted it, so they can start looking for either very personal, very critical information, potentially even incriminating information in your files. And I'll explain why they do that in a second. So you've gotten that very scary alert. You're starting to panic. Basically, you have three options. So one is you pay up. Now, for those of the many of you who have probably watched plenty of thrillers on TVs or in the movies, you know you're never supposed to negotiate with terrorists. You never are supposed to pay the ransom. Having said that, when it comes to the actual crunch time, and again, if the payment seems like something that is somewhat affordable, it is reasonable that people might want to take this route. And if you do take that route, chances are you will get your files back. There is a risk, though, just like in the movies, right? If you pay the cyber criminals, they now see you're a pretty easy mark, and more than likely they'll try to hit you again. So you do need to keep that in mind when you're making this choice. So you may decide to make that payment. Now, the second option is to not make a payment. And you're not making a payment because you know that you have already invested in a backup solution. And so even if you lose this particular copy of your files, you could always get a new laptop and restore that old data. So you'll be able to get your business up and running pretty quickly. In most cases, that's perfect. There is that small risk of that double stinger. If the cyber criminal actually still found a way to extract that critical information that they could threaten to release into the wild before they did the encryption, they still may pose a threat to you. So one thing we always say is that if there's anything that is particularly sensitive, or particularly confidential, that you take extra care to make sure that you're keeping that really secure. Now, of course, there's always that third option, or what we call it an option. It's the reality for many customers. Those that haven't bothered to do the backup, they also didn't make the payment. At that point, the chances are those files are lost, and you'll have to find some other way to reconstruct your business. Now, ransomware has been around for a while, and it certainly gets reported in the news with an increasing amount of frequency. We still hear from many of our smaller customers that why should they care? Obviously they hear these reports about cyber criminals going after hospitals, they're going after local governments that may not have the right security in place. Certainly create some real damage, but they go after effectively names, brands, or institutions that you recognize. And it's tempting to think, oh, I'm just a small mom and pop operation. Why would they ever come after me? Well, they absolutely will come after you, and they'll do it for a couple of reasons. One is, they recognize that a lot of small businesses have that attitude and haven't necessarily invested in even the minimum amount of security, so they're easy targets. And most ransomware activities are commercial activities. They're just trying to make some money, and they'll get it where they can. And it's become so easy to launch ransomware attacks. They can effectively launch them against many, many small organizations, knowing that they'll get a reasonable percentage that they'll be able to hit. But the actual impact to that small organization is extremely real. So the average cost of an attack for a mid-sized company, according to Gartner, can be up to 130 pounds. That could be either the cost of recovery, the cost of lost business, the potential cost of fines if personal data was leaked out into the internet. So it is a really real cost to a business, and if you're a small business, that could absolutely sink you. We've definitely seen this rise in the number of attacks. So we've seen almost 700,000 attempts to reach UK businesses in 2020 alone. And in fact, in the first few months of the pandemic, ransomware attacks in the UK surged by over 80%. And in fact, the pandemic is driving a lot of this increase in ransomware attacks because so many people are working from home. Now, the reason for that is because people working from home may not necessarily have the same security practices that they're used to practicing at work, so they get a little sloppy. Sometimes it's also because employees at home sometimes have to even use their own personal devices in order to conduct work. So that not having that sense of keeping that sense of awareness that to keep alert out for potential cyber attacks sometimes can be a bit weaker at home. And we'll talk a bit more about the changes of that in a minute.
Thank you, Rob. So I think a lot of people in the audience today will be thinking, why would I be targeted? Steve, I know you've been doing a lot of work on this. Please, can you let the audience know why me?
Sure, very happy to do so. Follow all the way through and click through. So we talked about phishing as being the way that this could arrive. So let's put on screen actually an example of a phishing email. Now take a look at this email, and I'm showing you two views of it. One, as you'd see on your laptop or your PC, and another one that you would see on your mobile phone. And you can see there is a phishing email. So let's do a bit of a poll here, because there are clues in this email that tell you that there's something not quite right with it, some phishing clues. So we've got a poll, we've got up at a minute. So please do vote and tell me, how many clues do you think might be in this phishing email? And we'll just give you a moment or two just to do that. So the answers are coming flying in. Currently, the popular one is around 3 to 4. 1 to 2 is starting to rise up. Okay, so we think around maybe 3, 4 clues that are in there. Well, let me click forward and show you that there's actually quite a lot going on in this email. And to be honest, we've kind of peppered it with a lot, so we could illustrate the sorts of things you can look for. So the first thing is, your mouse is your friend here. You know, when you move your mouse around the screen and you hover it over something, it will sometimes expand out to give you further information. So for example, if you hover your mouse over the sender or expand that out, you may find that even though it gives you a name that you may recognize, when you actually look at the address, it's something very strange indeed. So that's something you're not expecting. That is not an organization that you're actually in contact with. You also see that there is an attachment you weren't expecting. The email itself may not be well formatted. There could be sort of poor spelling and grammar. Very often, though, of course, what they're wanting you to do is to respond. So there will always be a sense of urgency in the language. You need to act now, you know, do something now. You must do this. Your service will be turned off. You know, money is disappearing from your bank account, or I urgently need you to pay me. Our bank has gone bust and we need you to change your payment details to this other place, or other things. Just say, please click on this, right? Or this is a chance of a lifetime, limited offer, all of this kind of stuff that say, I've got to get in on this. I've got to follow through. So that urgency. Also, the URL that's there doesn't look quite right. Why would you be pointed at that URL? And fundamentally, were you expecting this email or attachment? So actually, there's, you know, 5 to 6 different clues in this email, which gives you cause for concern. So bear in mind that you don't need to be taken easily. If you are able to sort of take a moment, maybe you can sort of recognize what this is. But fundamentally, you also need some sort of technical measures in place to improve your security. So back to you, Maria, and I'll talk a little bit more about this phishing email.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. So with this in mind, I'll take it back to Rob. Rob, what are your 3 top tips to small businesses to help them secure their business and their data?
So one of the things that I'm responsible for is defining what our propositions need to be for all of our customers, whether they are for the Ministry of Defense, the customers as big as the Ministry of Defense, or a new startup just having just launched. And so when we're thinking about our propositions, it's also very important for us to make sure that we're educating our customers on how to be secure and how to work securely. Now, it turns out that actually our advice is very similar to advice that the NCSC would also give you. And the National Cybersecurity Center is a very close partner of BT's, and they've also have the same mission as we do to make sure that you are as educated as our customers in how to behave in a secure manner. So 3 top tips that we share, which will help not just with ransomware, but with any cyber attack. The first one, in some ways, I know some of you will dread this recommendation, but it is all around passwords. As much as we get very frustrated with having to memorize so many passwords, making sure that you are using complex passwords that are difficult for an attacker to guess, and that you don't keep using them over and over is so critically important. It's a very basic thing, a piece of hygiene that will prevent so many cyber attacks from actually happening. If you need to, there are some very good password managers out there that will help you keep track of all those passwords that you need to keep for all those various websites and applications. The second thing is all around patching. Now, patching is effectively an industry term that is simply all about keeping your software up to date. So whether it's your operating system, your firewalls, whether it's your mobile devices, it's really important to update your systems to the latest patches, because providers today know that cyber criminals are always trying to stay one step ahead. And so they need to always make sure that they are patching all those and fixing all those vulnerabilities. So many cyber attacks actually happen because cyber criminals will actually exploit a very old vulnerability on the system that just was never patched. So keeping that in mind is also incredibly important. The third top tip is effectively all around the human firewall, making sure that you are keeping very aware and alert of your environment and what you're working on, and working in a secure manner. And Steve can tell you a lot more about the human firewall.
Yeah, sure, Rob. Thanks very much for that. So, look, human firewall. Let me kind of explain what that means. And actually, human firewall is even more important now as we've been working from home, and we've lacked the ability, in the office setting, to be able to look to the left or to the right or across the desk and say, hey Sue, I've just received this email. It's from blah blah blah. Were we expecting to receive this? You're a little bit more remote, and you feel you kind of need to deal with it yourself. So having your human firewall switched on is really important. And we did a lot of work with our own employees around this when we shifted into the working from home, because we knew this was going to be a threat, and people would feel a little bit isolated and feel they were going to have to figure this all out for themselves. So we introduced a very simple 3-step mantra for everyone to utilize, and that is stop, think, protect. And I'll break that down for you. So the first one is stop. Do you remember I was talking about the phishing email and the fact that it's always got something urgent, that you need to act now? If you don't act now, something bad is going to happen. Something difficult is going to happen. Or, I'm in trouble. I need you to save me. I need you to be my hero. And we all, in business, we want to look after our customers. Now, it looks like a customer needs something from us. We kind of feel motivated to act. So that urgency thing is going to play in our psychology to make us just do without thinking. Now, if we stop, how many times have you done something and it's the moment, a split second afterwards you've done it, that you do the sort of, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Well, that's what the stop thing will do for you. It'll give you that moment of pause that allows your logical brain, the one that figures stuff out for you, to kick in and just start analyzing and saying, well, just hold on a little second here. Now you can think. And the whole thing about thinking is to say, was I expecting this email? Does it look genuine? And then say, how am I going to verify what I'm being asked to do here? And this email actually is legitimate. And you can. You probably have the contact details for the sender already in your own address book. Or their official website where they have their contact details. So you can reach out and make contact with that potential sender and say, I've just received this email. Did you send it? What are you asking me to do and why? Because spear phishing does often happen as well. So part of what can happen now with the criminals is sometimes an early step before really targeted ransomware is that they will get inside the email accounts of people in your organization or another organization, find a little email trail and email thread, and try and replay that out to sort of get in the middle of a conversation and then have the malicious attachment sitting in there asking you to open it. So that ability to verify something because you're being asked to do something, so you're just going to verify it. That is taking an action to protect. You are now taking an action to decide, I'm going to verify this. That's taking a protective action, making sure what you've been asked to do is safe and legitimate. Or you find out that it's wrong, and therefore you decide to report it. So you report it back to the source or whomever. Either way, your human firewall has triggered, your human firewall has worked. So like I say, spear phishing is also another term that's on top of the general phishing, which is where they've tried to get inside some form of a conversation. They've worked out that you have a relationship with another organization and they're trying to spoof that they're asking you to do something from that organization. The best way to deal with that is absolutely through the human firewall. Maria, back to you.
Brilliant. So, Rob, can I ask, how can backup and antivirus be used to address these threats?
No, absolutely. And so when I mentioned those 3 top tips before, those top tips were about are great for not just for ransomware, but to help prevent any cyber attack. However, employing both antivirus and backup solutions is effectively that 4th top tip. That's very much targeted at preventing ransomware specifically. So antivirus is, of course, a very important tool. Everybody should have that on their laptops or even on their mobile devices these days. They have been developed over the years, not only just to deal with viruses, but they can also be used to detect potential activities that look like, and potential emails that look like they could be the start of a ransomware attack. So they have actually grown and developed over time. The one challenge with relying on antivirus on its own is that antivirus solutions tend to be very good at preventing known methods of attack. But cyber criminals are always evolving. They're always getting more clever, and occasionally they come up with new techniques that actually a traditional antivirus solution may not be able to prevent until it's been updated itself. Remember that comment I made about patching earlier. So you also need to make sure you have a good backup solution just in case a ransomware attack does get through the antivirus, your antivirus capabilities, and you accidentally click that link and your files were encrypted. Having that backup solution is absolutely essential for recovery. Now, BT has recently launched Secure Backup, BT Secure Backup by Acronis, which combines both backup and anti-malware, antivirus solutions in a single package. So now you can make sure that your first line of defense for ensuring that antivirus is blocking that vast majority of attacks. Then you have that backup that's already been integrated into the same solution, just in case that ransomware attack was successful. You'll have that confidence of knowing you can restore your files without having to pay criminals. Now, BT Secure Backup is the only cyber solution that delivers a unique integrated combination of proven backup technology and anti-malware protection using Acronis's patented AI-based technology to stop even those latest threats. BT is offering different levels of storage to cater to specific organizational needs, each of which will provide secure backup for up to 5 laptops and desktop computers, as well as enable users to easily view their backups and their cybersecurity activity, including blocked ransomware and anti-malware scan results. Users will be able to copy and retrieve individual files and folders or simply back up their entire device.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rob and Steve. There's some key takeaways here. We've obviously learned that there's an increase in volume and sophistication of these threats. And I think I've got some takeaways and the audience. So firstly, the top tips that you went through, Rob. So the patching, keeping that up to date, keeping your passwords up to date, and the human firewall. And also your mention of backup, having an up-to-date backup system in place. And also going back to what Steve was saying around the mantra, stop, think, and protect. So lastly, the BT Solution Secure Backup and links to everything that's been discussed will come up on screen. I'll now open the call up to Q&A.
Yeah, Maria, I think there's one I see there that's come in and about saying I've been getting lots of phishing emails that doesn't look like a suspicious sender, or cyber attacks evolving so much that soon it will be even harder to spot a phishing email. Right, so this is, you know, what Rob's been talking about. The attackers, not just in how they craft the email, the sort of the malware, they're looking at how they deliver it, and they're trying to get craftier and craftier. It is very, very hard, and it's getting much more sophisticated. The pandemic has been a boon for the phishers, because there's so much now government and authority intervention in our lives. There's also government support for us as small businesses as well. And they will try and send emails out that are very much tracking what's happening in the news around COVID-19, whether it's to do with vaccinations, whether it's to do with small business grants or assistance, whether it's to do with opening and closing of businesses, whether it's to do with people transgressing the rules around lockdown. These will look like they're coming from people in authority or authorities that are giving support. Again, trying to engender that kind of trust, which means you will click through without stopping and thinking. And to be honest, there is no substitute for the human firewall. Absolutely, all of the technical tips that Rob's talking about are absolute gold, and will raise the bar to the attacker that even if you do click through, the chances of them being successful are reduced. And hey, that's a great thing. But you know, the first line of defense is you and the people that work with you and for you in that human firewall.
Brill, thank you, Steve. So if you haven't already, please submit some questions on the Q&A. We've got another one. If I did pay the ransom, are there any stats around how likely it is that I will get my data back?
You know, I saw that question earlier while we were presenting, and it reminded me of a report that I saw recently. I think it was actually done by Sophos, where effectively only about 26% of people who paid the ransom actually got their files back. Now, fortunately, those people who didn't get those files back from the cyber criminals, those who would have still had a backup solution, still would have been okay. They would have been out of pocket, but they still would have gotten their data restored. But there are definitely going to be a significant chunk of those people who paid the ransom, still didn't get their files back, and because they didn't have a backup solution, they were going to be in a far worse position.
Another question, which is the best antivirus software, or is there a particular one that you would recommend at all? I think I'll take that back to you, Rob, with Secure Backup.
Yeah, so of course, so there are a whole bunch of antivirus solutions out there, and very many credible ones, names that you would have heard of over the years. What I would suggest, however, is again with the BT Secure Backup solution that we just recently launched. Even though it's called Secure Backup, it also has a very credible antivirus capability in it as well. And one of the things that we do at BT is we test any solution that we sell. We actually have a capability we call the Cyber Assessment Lab. And any solution that we sell to a customer, before we launch it as a proposition, we make sure that we run it through the Cyber Assessment Lab, run it through rigorous tests, as well as compare it with other competing solutions out there to make sure that what we're offering our customers is one that we think that will work, is credible, and is effective. And we did that. We exactly did that with Secure Backup, and with a specific focus on the antivirus capabilities. So you could have confidence in using that solution.
And I mean, the other thing to mention when you do have your antivirus solution in place is maintain the update. So when it says, you know, you need to update, make sure you've switched on the auto update. So it's keeping you right up to date, because as the cyber criminals keep introducing new types of malware and the way it operates and so on, the antivirus guys are then putting in those additional rules and detections and protections into their product and rolling those out. So make sure you have the auto update happening. Otherwise, you know, it's like you bought the antivirus, but you know you're not keeping it up to date. So it over time it just doesn't protect you properly anymore.
I mean, that all goes back to the whole when we were suggesting around patching. So effectively what you're doing is patching by making sure you have those updates on. And many virus solutions will almost have continuous updates, because that landscape is growing so quickly that antivirus solutions need to make sure that your virus definition updates, as they're called, are being almost continuously updated.
Brill. I'm just checking for any further questions. There doesn't seem to be any at this time, but feel free to reach out. So lastly, thank you all for joining. Please reach out to us on social media and let us know if you enjoyed today's training using the hashtag BT Skills for Tomorrow. Don't forget to check us out, check out our further webinars moving forward. Also visit our website, Skills for Tomorrow, and this is bt.com/skills-for-tomorrow/work-life. And before you leave us, please could I ask that you spare a moment to do a feedback survey, and we really want to just keep improving these sessions for you, so that'd be great if you could attend that. But thank you again, everyone. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.